Welcome to the Narrowing Path, walking the spiritual walk. My name is Steve Van Eiderstein, and thank you all for joining me tonight for the first day of 2024. Thank y'all for just being a part of this whole thing. It was a great year, really was. So, welcome to 2024, though. I will not be doing a daily reading from James Allen today, which is a little bit different. Honestly, it's been a quite an endeavor, honestly, to do this once a day for an uh, entire year, and this was my first experience doing anything like this too. So it was all new. You kind of just learned along the way, and it's been something that's pretty cool, to be able to see everything that goes into it, kind of see all of the, um, not even close to all of it actually. At the end of the day, just kind of seeing the functionality of this whole thing. It's been a really enjoyable experience, and I hope it's been something that um, you all have been enjoying and been a part of as well. So thank you for that. It really was interesting, and I got a lot of information out of it. So just as a kind of a recap here, I'm going to just give you some information that generally covers the whole thing, right? So um, we got there was obviously a 366 episodes, which is quite a bit, and we've had out of those 366 episodes, I was streamed in three different countries, which is pretty cool. Different countries, different continents. Um, it was pretty awesome. It's pretty cool to see how far it's gotten. I've also there was about a 1,875 streams, so it's not. This wasn't a ton of stuff or a ton of listens per se, but just getting started doing something little like this, I'm pretty happy with the results actually. Um, so it's just really, really cool. Um, it was shared quite a bit. I'm actually just going through the end statistics that Spotify gave me. So I'm just taking a look at them, and there's some good information. But anyway, yeah. So that was just a couple of things I wanted to tell you. Uh, that I'm grateful for the people that have been tuning in and listening and been a part of this whole thing for as long as it's been going on too. So yeah, it's been an experience. It's been a journey. So what what do we got in store for next year? Huh? What are we going to be doing next? And where are we going to go? Right? What's the next steps for this? So the point of this podcast uh, was to it really was to start talking about living spiritually, right? Of course, that's the name of the podcast here. It's the Narrowing Path, Walking the Spiritual Walk. Now, why I think that's important, and what I want to reiterate is what that really is, right? And how we're going to be doing that, or how I'm going to convey that. And a lot of that's through my own personal experience and how I've come to understand what spirituality even is, really, at the end of the day. And what's changed in my life to grow in this way. So, for anyone that's been listening this year, I've mentioned it multiple times. I'm not really anything, it's nothing I'm ashamed of or wish to hide. I'm somebody that is in recovery um, from drugs and alcohol. I'm sober, and it's been a good couple of years, which I'm extremely grateful for. And but to really conquer that, to really um, get a handle on those things, it took a spiritual solution, and I didn't really understand what that meant. If I'm honest with you, I didn't fully comprehend what they were talking about, and it took me a little while for it to sink in. But eventually, I came around to it. So, one thing I would like to touch on right now is what my definition of spirituality is and what it isn't as well. And maybe the first thing to establish is what I don't believe is spirituality. I don't believe spirituality has is exclusively anything to do with a god or a deity. I do not believe it has anything to do exclusively with a religion. I believe those it's been my experience and my observation that they get conflated a lot. They get intertwined and really to negative ends. It's really detrimental to many for those things to be mixed together. Um, because spirituality really is a separate concept and entity from those things. Now, I'll get into why they're so closely associated, but separating them is important. Separating what spirituality is and what a God of your understanding is and what power greater than yourself is, those can all be different things. Well, they to me they are all different things, right? And because I could separate them like that, it gave me the opportunity to grow in different ways. Gave me the ability to see things differently because I needed to have a spiritual solution. I needed to start living differently. But because I thought that that meant I had to serve the God of my misunderstanding, really what I thought a God was, really barred me from that. So when I was given the opportunity to break these things into different regions and areas and different parts, it gave me the freedom to grow. So I had a very big problem with the God concept, was as did many when they come into a period of recovery, and didn't really want much to do with it. So I didn't know how I was going to change. I didn't know how I was going to get better because I was sold on the fact that that's what needed to happen, but I didn't know how it was going to happen for me. So, um, but it did, thank goodness. And when I separated them, I was able to leave the God question alone for a while and just embrace a power greater than myself and living spiritually. So the power greater than myself was a group of like-minded individuals sharing their experience with me and their program of recovery to do the next right things, to live differently. So, and what that meant was, what living differently meant was living a spiritual lifestyle. So, now what is spirituality? Spirituality is a way of living. Okay? Spirituality is the decisions, thoughts, and actions you make and have on a daily basis, moment to moment. How do you conduct yourself and how do you behave? Now, I often will explain this as spirituality is every decision you make that is aligned with virtuous principle and it puts a brick in the path that God has intended for you. So, what that means is spirituality is a way you live, and it's just making right decisions based on principle and virtue and moral. Now, you can still leave the God part out about that, right? It's just the forward progression of your life. at the end of the day. And either every with every decision, you're either building your character in a positive, more astute, more righteous way, or you're being self-serving. You're making decisions that will actually be harmful and selfish and serving only you, which is very tainted and negative character, unhealthy character. So it determines your character, right? And spiritual living is living by proper moral. And I'm not talking, when I say proper moral, I mean accepted virtuous living, which is common to all religions most times, to just regular society. So it's virtuous living in the service of something greater than yourself. Now, you can't live virtuously and only serve yourself, because you'll only be as honest as long as it serves you. When it would serve you to lie in your own mind, you'll lie. At least that was my experience. That's the experience I've seen. You cannot have a spiritual way of living in service solely to yourself, because it's still selfish, right? So spiritual living is living virtuously in service to something greater than yourself. Now, this does not, there's a lot of times this is where it gets confused or gets associated. A lot of times that is in service to a god of some sort, or gods. But this can be to Mother Nature. This can be to source, karma, creative energy. This could be to society. Okay. This could be um, to, if you're in a 12-step program, the 12-step program you're a part of, right? It just has to not be you, and it has to be something bigger than you, right? So, spirituality is right living in service to something greater than yourself, and that abides by virtuous living. We're talking about, when I say virtuous living, I've said it many times already here. We're talking about honesty. We're talking about hope, faith, um, courage, integrity. We're talking about willingness, humility, forgiveness, love, discipline, service. These are the type of things. And honestly, this can be quite a much longer list at the end of the day. But a lot of these things, a lot of other characteristics can be made with a combination of these things, right? Um, so there's so much that can be done, right? So living is making decisions and taking actions based on those things I just talked about, in service to something other than yourself, right? Because if so, another thing, another example is, if you feel like holding a grudge against somebody will serve you best, then you'll hold on to it. But living spiritually would say forgiveness is the best way to be of service to that other person. And then therefore you're also free yourself, right? So living spiritually will have very positive side effects for you, right? But the goal of living spiritually is to be of service ultimately. And the side effect of that, though, you will get happiness, joy, love, forgiveness of yourself, strength of character, contentment with life, freedom. The things that so many day and age look for, and is usually the target. The problem is people use this as the target, the direction they want to take, but that never works. It's always the wrong target. The target, the aim needs to be service to something greater than yourself, living spiritually. And then the side effect gives you more positive things in your life than you ever thought possible. But doing the right thing for the right reason does not mean doing it so you get the rewards. It's a intention of your heart and of your soul, right? Where it comes through. Doing the right things for the right reasons because it's the right thing to do. I've said that so many times on this podcast. And going through that meditation, that year of meditations with James Allen, really reiterated that and what that kind of and how many different ways that looks. It was this year reading those daily readings was a huge thing to just get a very in-depth look at the different ways my selfishness and my self-centeredness will show up, and I'll stop being of service to others. And it gave us some checkpoints to do and stuff like that. So it was a great experience, and it really showed me, and I hope it conveyed to those who are listening, the importance of living spiritually and the benefit of that and what that looks like, right? James Allen is my favorite author. So that's what spirituality is. That's the definition, or that's the concept, to put some context to it for what we're going to be going into. So on that note, let's talk about what we're doing next. The next thing that I'm going to be doing is we're going to be doing some book reviews. All right. We're not going to be doing, it's not going to be a daily podcast anymore. It's going to be probably one post a week, maybe every other week. We'll see how it all goes. As of right now, I'm planning on doing a weekly entry that'll still be about 20 minutes a piece. Nothing huge, but we're going to go back and forth between just an audio file, and I am going to start doing some video. Okay. I'm going to start adding a video podcast to this, which I'm excited about. I think it'll be really cool, just to kind of grow it in a certain way and give you guys a little bit of a picture of who you're listening to, which is always fun. And the first one we're going to do is I'm sure you're not surprised, but we are going to do James Allen's As a Man Thinketh, and I think this is one of the most important books I have read. It's one of the most influential books you can ever read. It's been he's one of the originators of the self-help movement in the United States and the world, and it's been crucial to programs like Alcoholics Anonymous being founded. Actually, it was one of the books that they were reading. It's one of the books that they pulled some of their design for that program from. And after you get familiar with As a Man Thinketh, you'll see how it shows up. It's pretty amazing if you are in a 12-step recovery program. Now, this also led into all other areas of life. We're talking about psychology. We're talking about every, well, I said the self-help movement, but we're talking, Napoleon Hill was reading James Allen. We're talking about most of the people that get associated with improving yourself and your character, changing your life, have read James Allen. I think it's on Tony Robbins's must-read list. That he'll just give it away. And it's really a short book. So it's, I don't even know. I think you can read the entire thing out loud in 45 minutes to an hour. But that's not what we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing it a little differently. So yeah, it's got 7 chapters, and what I want to do is I'm going to I will read one chapter just as an audio file for the podcast. And then the part 2 will be the following week with the video where I'm talking about the chapter we went over. So it'll give you guys some time to actually listen to it. I would highly recommend getting a paper copy of the book so you can follow along while I read it. And be careful which copy you get. The new and revised versions have some wording differences, and who am I to say one's better than the other? But I will tell you that I always read from as close to original as I can find. I've bought some first editions, things like that, just to make sure the words that I'm reading are unadulterated. Because I feel like it's very important to get the authentic words that were being spoken that had such a reverberating impact and influence across the ages. So that is what we will do next. Then, after we do James Allen, I'm going to be digging into some Emmett Fox, um, reading a selection from one of his book, Sermon on the Mount, about the Beatitudes, and we'll be doing that one afterwards. So this first one will take about 14 weeks because we're going to be doing a reading, then a video podcast every other week, and we'll see where it takes us. And well, I mean, if it seems to be well enough, then maybe I'll release I was playing with the idea of maybe releasing the chapter reading on a Wednesday and then doing a video podcast on a Saturday or something too. So it might grow up and revise and change a little bit, but I'm here for it. We'll see what happens. So I'm very excited on these next steps. I appreciate everybody's participation in this and where we're kind of going too. So please don't hesitate to leave me any feedback on this podcast. I will be continuing to share it on the Facebook page. If you want to, go ahead and jump on that Facebook page. And I got to tell you, I went and I didn't read. I listened to my January 1st podcast, very first one I ever did today. And that podcast changed. It really did. It is evolved and structurally changed. And what a beautiful thing to remember. The first time I did it and put myself out on the internet for everyone to listen to. So pretty crazy to me, but definitely been a beautiful experience, and looking forward to seeing where this next year brings us. So thank y'all for joining me. I'll be um, putting up that first reading from James Allen. I'll be reading that first chapter. You'll see that posted within the week. So thank y'all. Until next time. Thanks.